was like a mic level throat clear cough.
Don't forget your
I
mute
know
button.
my
if you
mute
need it.
button.
I told her like after we were done recording,
It's still gonna pick up on yours though.
but it'll be less.
Yeah. Or
Distracting.
don't do what I do and forget to unmute yourself, because I do that all the time. But yeah, let's do this. You know what's funny is I just did my greatest fear, which was clicking the Severance intro for House of David. So we're gonna do that again. Hello, welcome back to Showboys. We're here not to talk about Severance today. We're going to be talking about House of David. And as always, joined with my good friends from Bearfruit Media, Tim and Nina. How you guys doing tonight?
What's up?
Fantastic.
Yeah, I
We're all
feel like
caffeinated and ready to go, man.
nice. I feel like it's been 3 hours since I've seen you. And yeah, we definitely have not spent a crap load of time together over the last
2 days.
24 hours. But yeah, I'm excited to be talking about episode 6. It was pretty phenomenal. And side note, I am equally excited to talk about the finale of Severance, which will be coming out tomorrow over here on the channel. So be on the lookout for that. But yes, House of David, episode 6, Giants Awakened. How did you guys feel after this episode?
I kind of mentioned in passing to you yesterday, but I feel like this episode kind of got me like re-excited for it. And if they continue this momentum, then I'll probably be back for next season.
Yeah. David's like, watch what you say about these Giants, Tim. I'm watching you.
I don't want to mess with him in the sling. I mean,
Yeah. Hey, he can hit two jars with one. So I mean, I'm just saying,
maybe 2 stones, one throw.
Tim and Nina, he might not be safe. You're sitting too close. Nina, though, how'd you feel?
I liked it. Yeah, I think I understand in like the past couple episodes, we had a lot of character building to do, a lot of backstory we had to cover and everything. But yeah, this one kind of piqued my interest a little bit more. So I feel like now we're getting with the real story. Not, like, I don't know. This one
fluff.
Yeah, it was.
It only took 2/3 of the season.
That's all.
Yeah.
But hey, no, it's good. And we had like it was last night after church service. We were talking with our pastor, whose brother, who's also a pastor, he's in town, and they were hanging out, and his brother is like really into the show, and he's like, all right, I can't wait anymore. I have to watch episode 6. So they watched it together, and our pastor had not watched any of the show yet, though he's wanted to. And he jumps in, just jumps right into episode 6, and he's like, what the heck? That was crazy. That was so cool. I'm hooked.
Excited.
And I'm like, it is good, but I feel like, going back and watching the first 5 episodes, you might be a little let down, maybe. Hopefully not. But yeah, starting with episode 6. Yeah, starting with episode 6, that's quite a good starting point. But you were saying yesterday, though, or maybe it was today, I don't know.
One of the days.
we haven't really left each other's sides in like 2 days, so I can't tell them apart. But you were saying that this actually could be a good first episode for someone to jump into, because it's kind of setting the stage and not really continuing, a specific storyline that's been started in other episodes.
Yeah, I feel like the attention getter you get in episode 1, where it like starts from the end and jumps back, is a good one, but I think the amount of action that came in this episode is like way above that. So I think it's one that like could really grab you a lot better. So I think that's why it got our pastor so excited about it.
Yes. So let's get into it. We start out with Orpah narrating the legend of the Watchers and the Nephilim. And of course, this references Genesis 6, where the sons of God took human wives, bore giants, etc., etc., etc. But I'm actually excited. So we're going to take, I said one sentence about the episode, and we're already going to take a little detour. But I think this is necessary because if you remember in episode 1, I like really poorly and shortly kind of like talked about basically the intro of this episode. So I was so excited when we were watching this, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I tried to explain this, and I didn't do a great job. The chance to like talk about it again. This time, because I was prepared, I actually looked some stuff up. So I'm gonna read through these notes, and we can stop and talk. But if you see me looking over at the screen, because I'm reading what I wrote down, so I don't get anything wrong, because I don't want to misspeak here. But this is the 3 rebellions, which is kind of a thought, or I don't know. Yeah, we'll just say thought of Dr. Joel Mutamale, who was like an understudy of Dr. Michael Heiser. Does that name ring a bell to you guys? Okay. So anyways, Michael Heiser, Dr. Joel Mutamale. I heard this. He was on a podcast, Faith and Friction, I believe. And he was talking about this, and I was like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense. And then, we started watching this, and I was like, this applies, so we got to read it. So talks about 3 main rebellions. The first one being the fall of humanity, which of course is the rebellion in Eden, which happens in Genesis 3. Satan tempts Adam and Eve to disobey God and seize divine knowledge for themselves. I mean, we're all familiar with this story. The serpent's deception plays on the desire for autonomy, suggesting that humans can become like God. And we see this in Genesis 3, verse 4 and 5. You will certainly not die, the serpent said to the woman, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This event represents both a human rebellion, being Adam and Eve's sin, and a spiritual rebellion, being Satan's deception. And of course, the consequences, we have spiritual death enters humanity. You see that in Genesis 3:19, separation from God and exile from Eden. You see that in Genesis 3:23 and 24. Curses on humanity and creation, Genesis 3, verse 14 through 19. And the introduction of sin, suffering, death into the world, Romans 5:12. This is the first major fracture between God and humanity. Establishes the pattern of sin and rebellion that will continue throughout the Bible, introduces spiritual warfare as God prophesies the coming battle between the Messiah and the serpent, which Genesis 3:15 says, I'll put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head and you will strike his heel. And of course, Jesus is seen as the second Adam in 1 Corinthians 15, verse 45, coming to reverse the effects of the fall. So the first rebellion we're all very familiar with, right? I mean, yes. The second rebellion, he calls this the corruption of humanity, which is the rebellion of the Watchers, or the sons of God. And that is in Genesis 6, verse 1 through 4, like we just read above. He says this event is less commonly taught in mainstream Christianity, but is central to the ancient Jewish theology. And of course, everyone's favorite non-canonical book, the Book of Enoch. The elements of this rebellion, the sons of God being divine beings, take human women as wives, producing Nephilim, the giants, or the mighty men, or the men of renown. You see this in Genesis 6. Verse 1 and 2, when human beings began to increase in number on the earth, daughters were born to them. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. These fallen angels, which the Book of Enoch refers to as the Watchers, not only corrupt humanity genetically, but also teach forbidden knowledge, including warfare, sorcery, and idol worship. This event is echoed in the New Testament when it's referenced in 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 4. For if God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment. And Jude 6 says, and the angels who did not keep their positions of authority, but abandoned their proper dwelling, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day. So you guys, there's a little bit more on this, but before I go any further, how you guys feeling with this part? I mean, I know the Book of Enoch is a very hot button issue in Christian circles. I'm not affirming the Book of Enoch here, but this stuff up to this point is echoed in the Bible. Yes. So yeah, how you guys tracking? What are you thinking?
Yeah. I mean, I think I've heard some of it before, but like you said, it's something to kind of a dicey topic, and insert disclaimer here.
Yeah, right. This is this is not the views or opinions of Crown Chapel or anyone associated therewith. But yes, so God's response to the Nephilim, the fallen angels and their offspring, is the Great Flood. Of course, we all know Noah's flood. He wipes out the Nephilim and human wickedness. The fallen angels are imprisoned, which we just read in 2 Peter and Jude 6. And Noah and his family are chosen as the last remnant of uncorrupted humanity, which is Genesis 6:9. And the significance here, the rebellion is a direct attack on God's created order as spiritual beings attempt to corrupt humanity. Many scholars believe that these events were meant to derail God's plan for the Messiah by polluting the human bloodline. And Jesus, after his resurrection, I don't know what I was saying there. After his resurrection, proclaims victory over these imprisoned spirits in 1 Peter 3, verse 18 through 20. So again, like, they make reference to the Book of Enoch, but again, we're still all stuff that is shown in the Bible here.
Yeah.
But that rebellion obviously significant. But the one that kind of, leads into where we are in the House of David, and when I'd slowly been wrestling with this stuff over the last year or so, when I really dug into the Old Testament. And I think this is kind of the thing that atheists or non-Christians or young new Christians struggle to reconcile with God, is the Old Testament and his wrath, and how can a loving God commit genocide and all this stuff. But once I kind of started looking at things this way and digging a little deeper and starting to accept the supernatural aspect of faith, because there is one. I mean, God is not a natural thing.
Correct.
What happened with Jesus was not a natural thing. This is supernatural.
Yes.
So once you look at the Old Testament through that same lens of not disregarding the supernatural aspects that are kind of just glossed over in 2 sentences, oh yeah, by the way, the sons of God left heaven, and then they thought the women here weren't too shabby, and then they had kids.
Yeah.
We're never going to talk about that again, but it happened.
It happened.
But looking, back at the Old Testament through that lens, especially here in the third rebellion that he talks about, really helped me understand, and it applies to the House of David and the Philistines and the Amalekites, all that stuff that we talked about in episode 1. So here we have the rebellion of the nations, and this is kind of indicated by the Tower of Babel and all of that stuff. So this is Genesis 11, verse 1 through 9. This rebellion is not just about human pride, but also has a deep supernatural element. After the flood, humanity gathers in one place instead of spreading across the earth as God commanded. See this in Genesis 9. They attempt to build a tower to reach the heavens, defying God's authority. Genesis 11, verse 4. Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. God sees this and he's like, no, that is not a good idea. That you should not do that. So he confuses their language and disperses everyone across the earth here. Then we see the divine council and the nations in Deuteronomy 32, verse 8 and 9. According to this, at Babel, God divided the nations and placed them under lesser divine beings or spiritual rulers. These spiritual rulers became the gods of the nation, leading them into idolatry in opposition to Yahweh. So Psalm 82, verse 1 through 7, God condemns these divine beings for their injustice and declares their judgment. And his response is to create a new nation through Abraham, Genesis 12, verse 1 and 3, which would one day bring all nations back to him through the Messiah. So the significance here, this rebellion explains the origin of the pagan nations, their false gods, the little g gods, which was one thing that I always I didn't understand. Like if the people in the Old Testament and even today are worshiping just idols, like, I mean, obviously that goes against what God commands. There should only be one God, right? Only he should be worshipped. But like, where's the power in just like an idol? Like, what? Right. How can that be so like controlling and effective to people? And it's like, oh, because they were actually worshiping like spirit, like actual spiritual beings. Like they do have power and influence, not as much as God. Like, but they, and I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. Like, I get it. It's my eyes are opening. But yeah, the gods of these nations are real spiritual entities, but they are corrupt and inferior to Yahweh, which you see that in 1 Corinthians 10, verse 20. And Jesus reverses Babel at Pentecost in Acts 2 when I always love Jesus. Like, he always comes to the places where there's been corruption or opposition, and like just turns it on its head and does like the exact same thing, but pointing to God. It's awesome. But yeah, here in Pentecost, of course, when the Holy Spirit falls, they all speak in different tongues, but like that unites them because they're speaking in languages other people can hear, but they didn't know that they could speak. And it was just super awesome. But the whole conclusion here, Mutamala and Heiser, they see these three rebellions as a progressive attempt by spiritual and human rebels to overthrow God's plan, but God's response is always redemption. In Genesis 3, Jesus comes as the second Adam to reverse, the curse on humanity that Adam inflicted there in the garden. In Genesis 6, Jesus' victory over the fallen angels. In Genesis 11, Jesus reclaiming the nations at Pentecost. So ultimately, Jesus comes as the true king and will judge the fallen powers and restore the world to God's original design. So with all those rebellions in mind, that is what I was trying to explain in episode 1, which is what they were beginning to show here in Orpa's story. Yeah. So I just talked a whole lot. What do you guys think? Like, how are you feeling after I just dumped all that on you?
You said a lot.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting tie-in. And I do like that. Like that outline that you came up with has like all the scriptures that it ties into.
Because like I haven't dug into any of it. Like you said, there's like literally like 2 verses in Genesis that mentions this, and then it's not mentioned. Like, it's not talked about very much. I feel like it's talked about in certain circles, but it's usually like a big debate, and like it's usually it's like it's a sensitive topic. I feel like, you know, on what it is, but
it's an interesting topic for sure.
Yeah, I want to kind of like in my free time, well, whatever free time I do have, I do kind of want to.
Free time?
What is that?
Yeah, what's that?
If I, you know, like studying it further would be interesting. It'd just be an interesting topic to look at a little bit more. I think it's interesting that like in like the first one you mentioned that like, or I think it was in the second one, where they were teaching like they didn't not only corrupted humanity.
Oh no, Babel's happening again.
Genetically, but also teaching forbidden knowledge, including warfare, sorcery, and idol worship. And I never actually like thought like, where did they learn that? Like,
yeah, where did they get blue mascara? I mean,
I told you that earlier. The queen had blue mascara. How did she wear
that from?
Like,
just saying.
Israel.
Just saying.
Rubbing blueberries on her eyes.
Maybe that witch gave her something to make her eyelashes blue.
Hey,
I don't
blue
know.
Juice.
Sorcery. But anyway, yeah, like you never just like I guess like I just never thought like, yeah, like they would have had to have been taught that by somebody or something. And yeah, so I just thought that was interesting. And then yeah, like God's response to it, like it all kind of just makes sense. Like everything that like the way that Dr. Mudamale puts it, like it makes sense. It explains it. I haven't read the Book of Enoch.
Oh yeah, same. Me either. And I probably won't. But it is interesting. It is interesting though, because like, no, it's not biblically canon, but it was like a piece of text, manuscript, whatever you want to call it, that was around in those days. Like Enoch was a person in the Bible talked about. And like the book was known enough in society then that they could make passing references in Jude about it.
Yeah.
And the people would know what they were talking about. You know what I mean? So and not saying that like it holds any like spiritual weight or like authority of God behind it, but like it was a thing that like it was like common knowledge to them back then.
Context,
yeah. And Enoch went to heaven without dying. So God just took him. Like one day he was here and one day he wasn't. Like that's how the scripture reads. So like God took him to heaven without dying. So I mean, like he walked with God really closely. Like that's what scripture says about him. So you have, not that like, yeah, we don't hold it as the word of God, like scripture, and because it's not included in the canon, but it could have like, I don't know. It can be a tricky thing because like, you don't want to read it and then all of a sudden like start thinking like that it's scripture, but you know, it is a good historical document, I think, to possibly, you know, see how things were at that time too with God's people. I don't know.
Yeah. And like looking at things through this lens, like, like when God sends the Israelites to go and like wipe out these different like societies, clans, like cities or whatever, like it's brutal in the Old Testament. It is absolutely brutal. Like he's like, leave no survivors, like not even livestock, like it all has to go. And like reading that, of course you're like, what the heck? Like
the heck, man?
God is love. That does not seem very loving.
Right.
But when you see like I don't know how to say this without, it's still gonna sound brutal, but like these, oh man, maybe abominations is like too harsh, but like they are creations that are in direct opposition of God's intention for creation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're corrupted by evil.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like if you leave a small seed, right, like it will grow again.
Right.
And so God is trying to eliminate what is opposite of his intention.
Mhm.
And it sounds brutal. I mean, it still sounds brutal, but like when you see it through that intention or that lens, instead of like they just happen to live in the promised land, so Israelites, get them out of there. It's like, no,
Mhm.
that's not actually what it is.
Right.
Like these were the creation of the direct opposition of God. And so like it has to be like the band-aid has to be ripped off, you know? But yeah, so Orpa's explaining all this to her sons in the giant cave, which sounds very weird that giants are living in a cave, but hey, you never know.
It's a fantastic monologue, though.
It was. And it was like visually really cool, even though it was very clearly like AI models.
Nobody had hands.
Yeah, we joked around. We didn't see any hands, so we couldn't tell. We couldn't verify. But it was rumored that maybe some Nephilim did have 6 fingers. So like even if they did show the hands, maybe we wouldn't know.
The Nephilim.
That's
You have
right.
6
It
fingers
is.
on your right hand.
But Orpa tells Goliath that he and his brothers are the only remaining Nephilim, and Akish, he's trying to get these giants on his side so he can, like we talked about before, go and seek vengeance against Saul for Saul defeating his father in a previous battle. So much so that Goliath and Orpa make the trip to Akish's kingdom, castle, whatever you want to say. And in the conversation between Akish and I think it was Orpa or Goliath, it was one of them. He even says like that they were taught this advanced like metallurgy to make these weapons and stuff. So it was kind of like a little reference to some of the things we talked about above. Yeah, what'd you guys think of the coming together of Goliath and Akish? Their little meeting, the little weapon unveiling.
I thought it was kind of cool, like how he's trying to sell Goliath on it. He's like, yeah, I already told everybody that you're on my side, so look at the cool toys I got for you. They're so neat. And he unveils his sword that's literally the same size as him.
Yeah.
I think the interaction was kind of cool, and like I feel like that's kind of how it would go. Like he's just like, come on, I really need you on my side. Especially since I already told my bros that that you were there.
Yeah.
And then like visually, I have to say, like the forced perspective that they keep using in these shots to make Goliath seem so large. Like that had to have so much planning and stuff that they had to make that look right, and because it all looked like it was practically done. Like I didn't see anything that seemed like it was out of hand CG or anything like that. So like visually, it was fantastic as well. So
yeah, I would say that I think they've handled the Goliath size next to normal people for the most part, like pretty well done. It's hard to, if it is CGI, it's pretty hard to tell.
Yeah.
I loved I love the scene where he like throws his shield and it lands on the 2 people. That was really cool, and just to get like a scale reference of just how big his shield is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like we've done in most episodes, we're gonna kind of follow characters' arcs throughout the whole episode. So this episode begins with Orpa and Goliath, and then ends with Orpa and Goliath. So we're gonna talk about the beginning and the end, and then we'll fill in the rest as we go. But Orpah is kind of like Goliath and his brother's agent here with Akish. She's like trying to negotiate a deal.
It's in it for me.
Yeah, exactly. And essentially, she comes up with, if you want my son's help and they're able to help you defeat the Israelites, you have to surrender your throne to Goliath, because her whole shtick this episode is like they're not just like big dudes, they're gods, and which we just kind of talked about. So she's like, they're not here to serve, they're here to be served, right? And Akish is like, no. And so they leave, and I think Goliath is kind of a little disappointed because it looked like he was having a lot of fun.
Mom,
Yeah,
I was having fun with my new friends.
Yeah, what the heck? It's not even lunchtime yet. But guess who's back though? We haven't seen in quite a while.
Doug.
Hebrew Doug's back.
You sound so excited, but it's so bad.
Yeah, because whenever Hebrew Doug's around, it's never anything good.
Never anything good.
Yeah, so
human beings ever.
yeah. So Akish, he's thinking about betraying the Giants, which obviously would be a terrible idea for him. But Doug appears, and it seemed like sorry, it's always Pokemon. It's always Pokemon in my mind. But it looks like Akish knows Doug. Did you guys get that? You guys get that? Pick that up?
He seemed very put off by seeing too. He's like, Doug.
Gosh, can never get rid of this guy. So what do you think that's all about? Because Doug is in the Israelite camp, or at least close enough for all of Saul's people to be going and hanging out with Hebrew Doug.
I think, like he is Israelite by blood, I think. Is that what they're portraying? That he's is that?
I think he's just kind of living there. He's one of the people that's like doing things in the background as like kind of like the medium and how she's
but you don't think we don't think he's actually a Hebrew? We don't think he's actually an Israelite? Because I thought they didn't allow strangers to live. They had laws about strangers living with them and stuff like that. Yeah, so I don't know.
I don't think they flat out called what he is.
But he doesn't serve Yahweh.
No.
He made that very clear.
So I think maybe because he is, as they've hinted, kind of a man of science.
Witch doctor.
Yeah. He just wants to chop things up and see what secrets they hold. His words.
Yeah.
And so I don't.
Have you ever seen a beating heart?
Like,
do you want to? A poor Hebrew boy.
Poor Ruben.
Yeah, I do.
Like any small child would say with any weird situation. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I don't think they flat out have said that he's Hebrew or Philistine. I can assume that he's not Philistine because they wouldn't let him be there.
Right.
But maybe he's like been like a wanderer, and like kind of like came in there and is just living
sojourner.
Yeah, and he does business for whoever will pay him.
So that Doug, he's a real wild card,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as most Dougs are.
Just most of them.
Doug's like, you know what, Akish, I see what's going on here. I think I might know a way to make this work for you.
Got an idea.
So, Orpah, who I keep, spoiler alert, thankfully, hopefully this is the last time I have to talk about Orpah because I have to fight tooth and nail from saying Oprah like every time. But yes, Orpah and the boys are back at the cave, just having a jolly old time.
Drinking and being merry.
I think they spilled more than they have consumed. It's just like everywhere. But yeah, so they're drinking and being merry. But she's like, we need to go. So like in the morning we'll get all of our stuff. We're gonna head out because people know where we are now. And one of the big like points of contention between Orpah and Goliath specifically, Goliath's like, rightfully so, we're giants. Why do we need to hide? Like, why are we hiding? And she's like, I gotta protect you. And he's like, we're 4 giants. I think we can protect ourselves.
We'll be okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like they had tanks back then or like fighter jets. Like, I think he could handle a spear. Well, actually, never mind. He couldn't handle a tiny rock. So I take it all back.
Just kidding.
Orpah was right. But yeah, so so they're drinking before they're about ready to go wander and find a new hideout. And Orpah goes out to the wine hole that's dug in their cave's front yard,
which conveniently has a size door that only she can fit through, so the boys can't get wine themselves.
There's actually, that's a great idea. That is a great idea. Yeah. But yeah, on her way back, wouldn't you know,
freaking Hebrew
Doug, he's right there. He's like, Orpah, how's it going?
Hey, greetings from Saul.
Yeah, my dude Saul just want to say hi. Also, so did my knife. And yes, he stabs Orpah, and then just for fun gives a little twist so she makes a nice loud noise so the boys can hear. But you're right, he does say greetings from Saul essentially before the deed is done, and leaves the dagger in her, which is an Israelite dagger, planting the seed, right? Some espionage. That's probably the wrong word, but some.
It works.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, trying to pin Orpah's death on Saul, of course, to anger Goliath, so he'll come to Achish and be like, I'll fight with you. We need to take this guy down. And wouldn't you know, that's exactly what happens. That's crazy. Yeah. But yes, so with Orpah's dying breath, as Saul is like, okay, can we just say I'm not a fan of like what they do to his voice though?
Mm-hmm.
Goliath's voice.
Yeah, especially when he's like crying. He's like, Aah!
Yeah.
I think they're trying real hard to try to make him sound like Andre the Giant, and instead, I think they're kind of.
It has a
losing.
slight very minimally resembles it, but
yeah, like his normal talking, it sounds a little bit
but
like him.
Like their voice, they sound like, I know, like being a giant, like your voice is probably going to be lower. Like you're not going to have a super high voice if you're a giant.
Hey guys, I'm Goliath.
But I even said to you when we were watching it that I was like, they're making their voices lower, like on purpose. Yeah, she's right?
Like, are they pitching down their voices? I'm like, most certainly, yes.
Yeah, like it's very noticeable. It's not like, it doesn't seem natural. Like nothing's natural about a giant. But
yeah, I was about to say,
there's nothing natural about a giant.
He's like 10 feet tall. That's not.
Yeah, that's not natural. But the voice, you can. It's just It
the crying scene. I was like, maybe one wail would have been sufficient, but to keep wailing, I'm like, I get it. And I don't like the way his voice sounds.
Yeah, I was glad we had someone else to know that he was saying the word no over and over and over again.
Yeah. No.
No.
But yes, while Goliath is mourning the loss of Orpah, she, of course, asks him to avenge her on the house of Saul, which we see, 2 Samuel 21. David's men actually, spoiler alert, fight and kill Goliath's remaining relatives. vengeance was not exactly had.
Seen in hiding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was right.
But yeah, so Goliath, in his fit of rage on his way to Akish, ends up like stomping some poor sojourner. By the way, I'm like halfway through Leviticus again, and they just say sojourner a lot in there, so that's why it just keeps coming out. I'm sorry. But yeah, he just stomps on some poor dude, gets to Akish, kneels before him, and he's basically like, let's do this.
Holding the Hebrew dagger like it's a toothpick.
Yeah, exactly. I did like when he's holding it, it's very tiny, and then he throws it, and then it obviously looks like a normal dagger. It's very cool. I all of the stuff besides his voice.
Yes.
I'm bored with everything else.
Yes.
So we did have some action back at the fortress with Saul, of course. It wouldn't be House or an episode of House David if Mikhail is not watching David play the harp. So,
Oh, how she loves
we got that going on. But the big thing here is we have a conversation between Mikhail and Mirab about David, essentially, and Mikhail admits that I love him, but we'll never be together. But she's very disturbed by when she was spying on him as he was sitting on the throne. Am I the only one that was like, why is she so disturbed about this?
Right.
I think because, like Mirab says, that women are just ladders, men climb to power. And so her seeing David sitting on the throne, she thinks he's just playing me because he wants the throne.
He wants to climb.
He doesn't actually love me. He wants to be king.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here, Nina, because Tim and I probably just been like, that's dumb.
That's
dumb. Fun.
That makes sense.
That's why the podcast isn't just me for Bear Fruit Podcast, because it would be, all right, well, let's happen. All right, cool.
Yeah.
2-second episodes.
I got the point across, didn't I?
Hey, you know what? I like that idea. I might try that. New spin-off podcast where it's just like one sentence per episode. That would be very difficult for me to do.
And the Lord said, have you tried not?
Yes.
Tune in next week.
Spoiler alert. He kind of says the same thing. But no, like that does make sense. But at the same time, like, when you look at David, do you really think? I'm putting myself in Mikhail's shoes. Like, you really think this guy could be king, or do we really think this guy thinks he could be king? But I get what you're saying. That does make sense. But yeah, she's disturbed, and I like how many times in the show, like, the characters just say like what everyone knows. Like, they don't beat around the bush. They're just like, yeah, of course I'm in love with David. Have you seen him?
Did you hear his beautiful voice?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is actually the actor's voice. Looked it up finally.
Yes.
Questioning it, we figure we'd be prepared this time. Yes, he is the one singing those songs.
Hey, it only took 2/3 of the season.
We made it.
To use Google.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. That's what you've all been tuning in for.
Yeah. You just got to keep you guys hanging on. But yeah, later on, Mikhail and David run into each other, have a little conversation. David's like, what if we just like ran away?
So
here's a crazy idea. What if you just weren't in the palace?
Yeah. And again, I'm saying, how does she look at him and be like, this guy thinks he could be king?
Really?
Like,
that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, yes, it is dumb, but like, it's not like they had cell phones and cameras everywhere. I mean, if they got a decent enough head start, I mean, they probably could.
True.
To be all right.
He fought a lion and a bear.
That's
so
true.
he can
He
protect
Killed a
her.
lion.
He did rip the claws out of a lion's paw, so
So they'd be
Yeah.
safe,
um
at least from lions.
yeah. But yeah, so of course she's like, no, David, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. I'm not gonna do that. And here she if anyone's ever seen The Room, and Mikhail, you're breaking my heart. You'll have to look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. Because
Hi, Mark.
yeah. Hi, David. Yeah. So she's like, no, I'm not gonna do that, you doofus. Also, like, I know we have feelings for each other, but it's never gonna work out. So I'm just gonna break it off now. And
Even
David
though
gets
I
sad.
love you.
Yeah.
She actually said the L
Two
word.
things are true. I love you, and we can never be together.
Yeah.
And David's like, what was that?
What?
first
I love it. I love it so much.
one?
She loves me now.
Yeah, so that was a big bummer for David. But some cool things that happened with David this episode. We did get to see his relationship with Saul start to grow a little more. I really enjoy like the little like genuine conversations they have with each other, because again, in scripture, like David and Saul, like Saul loved David until
Yes.
like he realized people loved David more than they loved Saul. And then he's like, hey, wait a second. But like before then they were cool. They were like, so it's cool to see the show doing that. But then we have like the sad scene where he's having that like conversation with David, but thinks he's talking to Jonathan.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God.
I'm like, this is an awkward conversation. And then you're like, oh, he just called him Jonathan.
Yeah.
Oh.
Also pretty metal that David like played the harp till his fingers bled.
Very metal.
My dude. But yeah, there's like some a moment of irony, not when Saul thinks he's talking to Jonathan, but he does warn David not to let another man steal his destiny.
I was actually laughing at that conversation, and then he said Jonathan. I was like, oh.
Yeah. But yeah, of course, it wouldn't be. It also, much like seeing Mikhail watching David play the harp, it wouldn't be an episode of House of David if Saul did not have a mental breakdown. So we have a couple of those, and here we see, of course, the Queen and the Medium like trying to do their dark magic bit to help Saul, so much so that they get into like the blood magic of mixing Saul's blood with some blue tonic, which probably was the eyeshadow like in liquid form, and forcing him to guzzle it down. But was it Jonathan that walks in?
Yes.
My dude Jonathan. He's like, hey,
my dude
who
God rules his house. Shut your mouth.
Flips tables like Jesus did.
That's right. Right. Those J names. He could use a haircut though. Like the mop is a little bit ridiculous. But yeah, I Jonathan, also a cool character actually in the Bible, who is really cool. But yeah, I love seeing him like stand up and constantly push back against his mom and be like, dude, God is in charge here. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to be doing this stuff. You're like going down the wrong path. And of course, Deuteronomy says sorcery is condemned. Obviously, I mean, duh. But yeah, Basai, which apparently is the medium's name, which I always forget. She's basically like, this could help. This little concoction. I mean, technically, one way or the other, it will help cure the madness. One would be more beneficial for you guys, where it cures his madness and he stays alive. The other one, well, let's just hope the first one works out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's still going on, and again, like the gentleman who plays Saul, I think, has been doing such a great job portraying like the two different sides. Well, I mean, it's like kind of like 3 or 4 different sides, but like the genuine moments with David, the like mental breakdown moments where he's dealing with the tormenting spirit and his affliction, and then like just the rampaging king. Like he's, I mean, you guys behind Saul this season.
He's a fantastic actor. Like,
yeah, he does a good job.
He's always spot on. Like, it's not one of those performances where you watch it and you're just like, just settle down a little bit, buddy. Like, he's doing it like just enough to where like it feels believable. Like all the actors in this show, like they feel very believable.
Yeah.
So aside from that one scene with what's her face, the worst, Mirab. Yeah, we'll get there, but besides that, like, everybody else's acting is fantastic.
Yes, the worst. which we need to. Well, I guess Eshball's not around anymore, so she can claim the sole title of the worst. But like when they're both around, like
he's the worst.
He's the worst, and she's like the worst B.
Worst S.
Worst A. Yeah.
She's the worst ladder.
The last little bit on David here in this episode, of course, is he's like, you know what? Maybe I just need a little break. I'm gonna go back home. I just had my heart broken. The king's thinking I'm his son. Like, it's getting a little awkward. Also, my brother keeps trying to kill me. Which we kind of forgot about that part, but yeah. Eliab just like body slams him into the wall.
And Jonathan's like, hey, no, he's my dude.
Yeah, exactly. Which I can't wait. I can't wait for Jonathan and David to like
Yes, I want to see that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That'll probably be season 2, honestly, by how things are going. After he sees that he's a worthy soldier.
Mm-hmm.
When Basai has Saul drink that and Jonathan comes in, David's standing right there and seeing all this too.
Right? That's right. Yeah.
And she's like doing this incantation. It's like, it's really like really creepy. And then like she turns though, and she
she says something.
She's kicked out. She's like, this is all because of you.
Yeah, she points to David and said, this is because of you.
She gave him the answer right there.
And he's like,
my bad.
And he's just sitting there like
awkward.
The thing is, David didn't even flinch.
No.
He just stood there like,
oh crap.
Who
Hold
you?
on, I unplugged my headphones.
Oh no.
Sorry, what'd you say there?
No, David was just standing there like, who are you? Like,
right.
What do you say? I don't care what you have to say.
Yeah.
Like,
I know my destiny. Do you know yours?
Yeah. But
yeah, how many times are you going to use that?
Yeah.
As times as possible.
But she kind of like gives it away. But she kind of already hinted before something about David. Like, she kind of wasn't a fan of him to begin with.
The light in him,
yeah,
but also darkness.
But yeah.
Ooh, duality of man.
I wouldn't be a musician without a little darkness.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, she was like, this is because of you. And Jonathan's like, didn't want to hear it. He's like, get out. Like, he didn't believe that for a second.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
This is my future buddy, man.
Yeah, I'll talk about my bro like that. But yeah, so David's like, I'm just gonna go head back home for a little bit.
Yep.
And that's when Mirror comes out and is just like, tell me what you want to tell my sister. And David's like saying what we're all thinking, like, what are you doing? He flat out says it.
She's trying to touch his hand and getting awfully close to his face, like trying
Yeah.
to seduce him.
It's
real
like,
awkward.
It's weird because like,
Really
what are
awkward.
you trying to get out of
Yeah.
this? Like,
Did you like? What did you guys?
moment.
What do you think's going on? Because like I was genuinely like, what's the point of this?
What I think is that she was talking to him about Mikhail while getting so close and trying to seduce him to maybe like trick his mind into thinking like, yeah, I love Mikhail. I want to be with Mikhail, and then like kiss her, and then they end
maybe
up.
it's easier for Mikhail to let go of it or whatever.
I don't
he's
know.
a dirty, rotten cheater.
I don't know why she wanted to. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
We don't know why. David doesn't know why. David's like,
yeah,
I'll tell you, but I'm going to stand like this.
Yeah. He doesn't have that same self-control later in his life, but
yeah, well,
yeah, well, let's not get too far ahead, okay?
spoilers.
Yeah, it was very weird. I didn't understand the purpose. Because it's not like Mikhail was like you guys, like Tim and you were saying. It's not like she was even there to like.
It was really
if she was, if she was trying to like spite her sister, or something.
maybe
Maybe they'll call back to it later and make it make sense. But currently, we're all kind of like David, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, which is weird because it's like I feel like everything they've done in the show is on purpose, and it makes sense. So this, I'm just like
maybe it's like a little nod to like Saul offering her to David first or something like.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
in the scripture,
But
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see what happens. But sorry for that. I did not have the mute button right there, so you're welcome.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, David goes home, and another thing where I was not as confused, but a little bit confused. Like his dad, Jesse's just like, David, my boy. He pulled a mic.
Oh,
Like, my boy. But he was like all happy and like, David, we're old chums. I've never been angry with you before in our entire existence. Like, welcome home.
You're not an outcast anymore.
I kind of liked that scene because in my mind, I feel like in scriptures it doesn't read like Jesse hates David.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was their way of kind of reconciling that, and like the time away made the heart grow fond.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
So I think maybe it was like them trying to reconcile that relationship and soften his heart some to make it so like it felt like a better relationship. And plus, like later on when David is sent to bring his brother's food on the front lines and everything like that, before he wouldn't even let David out of the fields. So maybe this is make it so he has a little bit more freedom in his own home. Or maybe the fact that this entire time he thought like he doesn't know if his son's going to live through this. Like it kind of like got him thinking like maybe I've been a little bit too harsh on David
because like has Elia been back since they both left? Like, so that's kind of where my mind was going, where like Jesse hasn't heard from either of them since they were taken.
Like you said, no cell phones, no internet. Like
Eliab has been busy with the border town, so no, I don't think Eliab's been back either.
No.
But did you guys draw parallels? The first thing that my mind went to was like the prodigal son story.
Yes,
I was like, hey, this kind of reminds me of that. Like it could be like
not his dad. His dad just yelled like, "Hey, I'm not allowed to run because it wouldn't be fitting for a man of my stature."
Yes, let me hike up my turban, my whatever, and power walk to you, my son. Which that is a way funnier image than Jesse running.
I mean, you'd think you'd need to hold on to it so it doesn't fly off if you're running.
You know what I was going for.
Just like it. Wait, is hiking your turban up, actually pulling it down so it doesn't fall off?
Oh no, it's like what do you do when your spouse asks you to turn the air down? Like, do you make it colder or hotter?
Do you make it below less or less temperature? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
or lower temperature?
Turn the air down. But what do you mean? Like, are you too cold? Do you want me to make the air not as cold? Like,
you're looking at me because you know exactly what I'm about to say. So Nina's family
kids do the same thing.
Oh no, I was going to bring up the fact that your family forever has always said they need to unthaw something.
Oh my gosh!
And I broke Nina of that very early on in our marriage because I'd be like, done. It's already unthawed. It's there in the freezer.
It's frozen. So therefore,
there it is.
Unthawed.
So it's just one of those things. You just gotta figure out what they need and maybe break them.
Oh yes.
We usually say turn down the thermostat when we talk about it ourselves.
I say turn the air down.
Do you?
To make it colder. That's what I mean.
Oh,
yes.
I say turn down the thermostat.
From now on, I'm going to request Becca, make it hotter in here. Becca, decrease the temperature of the air in our household.
Is she a virtual assistant?
That's what I named my Alexa.
Set the temperature to 73 degrees.
No, okay. So whoever has like one of those smart homes where they can do fancy things like that, tell it to turn the air down and then tell me what it does.
Ooh,
does it make it colder or hotter?
Be a good test.
That'll solve the whole question for you.
Yes. But yeah, so now we have Jonathan and Samuel. Very short little snippet of the episode here. Thought it was pretty cool though, but it kind of a little strange that like no one knows where Samuel is, and then Jonathan's like, "Well, yeah, he would be the only place.
Would be.
Of course, he would be at Mount Sinai." And it's like, okay, well, if it was like that easy for people to assume where Samuel was, do you think he would go hide there while people are trying to kill him?
Well,
they've been busy with Saul.
Well, and that's why, like, yeah, there's been so much distraction going on in Israel that everybody's been distracted with there was going to be a marriage, and then all of a sudden there was a marriage.
They didn't have the wedding to distract people, so Saul's been distracting people from where
everybody basically, like, the word of his madness is spreading. But also, like, it explains why Samuel attacks Jonathan as soon as he gets there.
He beats the crap out of him.
He does. And in my mind, I was like, wow, that's some old man strength. And then Samuel was like, oh, you weren't expecting my old man strength. And I was like, I love this show.
Why does it remind me of an anime?
That's why I just made that reference of it being my final form. You guys never watched anime, so
yes.
Avatar: Last Airbender not anime?
No.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I have never watched anime.
It just looks like anime.
Cartoons are not anime, Nina. Okay, but anime is cartoons.
I've listened to anime and I've fallen asleep. Tim's used to watch anime and I would just fall asleep, so I used to listen.
But yeah, what do you guys think of the little vision that Jonathan has as he's climbing up the mountain?
Intense.
I thought it was kind of cool how they showed all that because he's walking up to like one of the holiest places at that point, and so the presence of God obviously will be resting there, and so like him being somebody who's never stepped foot on any holy ground would possibly have been overwhelmed by it if God allowed him to step up there, I thought it was kind of interesting that he was shown the same vision that we've seen a couple times, and kind of got him rattled, and maybe that made it so Samuel was able to use his old man strength to his advantage because Jonathan's like, but wait, did I just die or
right?
Am I dead or am I alive? I don't know.
Am I in heaven right now?
Does everybody get beat up when they go into heaven?
Yeah. Oh man, that's some old covenant heaven for you.
Everybody gets the crap beat out of them as soon as they get
there. But yeah, so like not biblical. Like I don't think we see anywhere that people get beat up when they get into. No, I'm just kidding.
Gotta beat the devil.
But I don't. I don't think we see an instance of Jonathan having any sort of like visions that are noted in scripture. But this is, spoiler alert, a little foreshadowing of Saul and Jonathan's fate. He does die alongside Saul in battle in the Bible. So sorry, spoiler alert. But again, this book's been around for a couple thousand years. So maybe it's your fault. I don't know.
Maybe it's your fault.
But yeah, so after Jonathan gets beat up, he's like, Saul, or Samuel, what the heck did I just see? And Samuel's like, I don't know. Let's not get into that right now.
Who's to say?
Yeah. But no, they have a little conversation about Saul, and essentially Saul is kind of breaking the first commandment by elevating himself as a godlike figure, refusing to let go of the power that he's obtained and the praise that he gets from his subjects, right? And Samuel confirms that he has indeed anointed a new king. And there's a really cool exchange where before Samuel answers that, because Jonathan's like, is it true? Did you anoint a new king? And he's like, who do you serve, though?
He answers it by not answering it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
first, who you serve?
Yeah. But it was cool, though, because like we've seen Jonathan so far in the first 5 episodes, he's like, I serve God. And Samuel, okay. Yes, I do.
Absolutely. You might have seen him, actually.
Yeah. It's a little short, kind of skinny guy, plays harp. Sound familiar?
Might become BFFs.
But yeah, pretty cool seeing, because, we see like Jesus tells us in the New Testament, like you should love me above your brother, your sister, your mother, your father. And we see that through Jonathan, of course, before Jesus came, but like he's submitted to God before his family, his house, his role, etc., which is really cool to see the devoted heart there. But before Jonathan leaves, Samuel's like, hey, you should go by that, that one valley, like before you made the left, like, you should probably go back that way, because I sense a darkness brewing, or I don't forget exactly what
Servants of the Force.
Yes, exactly. Which, don't get me started, because Andor's about to start and I'm so hyped about it. Like, I gotta rewatch season 1. But yeah, so he tells Jonathan to go by the valley on his way back, because strange things are afoot at the valley of Elah there. And Jonathan follows through, goes by the valley, and wouldn't you know, there's just like so many Philistines coming.
So many.
Like way too many.
When you think of 5 kingdoms, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of soldiers.
Indeed. So he gets back and he's like, guys, we got a little bit of a problem.
And they're like, we know.
Yeah. Have you ever seen The Great Outdoors? Because like Jonathan was essentially John Candy, like when he runs into the cabin after seeing the bear, he's like, big bear, big bear. If you see in The Great Outdoors, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That was Jonathan after seeing all the soldiers in the valley. I mean, was it not? I mean, that's a great correlation there. I don't care what anyone says. But yeah, like you said, Saul's like, we already know. Get everyone ready. Let's get out there. I think he says, let them come and see the strength of a real king. So hopefully we get Saul on a good day.
Gather the tribes.
Yeah. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The table has been set. We have 2 episodes left, and I mean, I don't know how long it takes to get from the valley to the fortress, but we only got 2 episodes.
That long.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe episode 7, we see the beginning of the confrontation, and like David's preparation / like volunteering, or maybe that happens towards the end of the episode or all in episode 8. Where do you think we go from here, guys?
I think they're going to show a little bit of it at the end of episode 7, because the episodes are titled David and Goliath Part 1 and 2. So I think they're going to tease it and leave us like wanting more, and then it's going to cut off, and it's going to be like right about when he's about to say something to Goliath, I think. So we're going to get the scene in Saul's tent where Saul like, here, wear my arm or do this. And he's going to be like, it's too big. And and then he's going to be eyeing Mikhail. We know she's going to be there because she was in the trailer.
Yeah.
So she's on the sidelines for some reason because
women at a battle site, that's normal.
Yeah, totally normal.
Especially in ancient Israel.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we know she's going to be there. So I think she's going to maybe give him a pep talk at some point or something like that. I don't know. She's going to be like, I love you always.
Yeah. Listen, you do this, I'll give you a smooch. Okay.
It's very motivating.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, what I think this would be a really cool way to end episode 7. All right. So like it mirrors Goliath and David entering like that confrontation, right? And then you just hear Mikhail's voice. So let me ask you again, can the fate of whatever she says like be changed by one stone or whatever? And then it ends, and then we go into episode 8, which is the big showdown.
Or maybe she asks the question, and as it fades to credits, you hear the crack of his sling.
Yeah,
that would be kind of cool.
And then episode 8 starts with David with a spear in his shoulder. No, I'm just kidding.
And your couch gets angry.
Yeah, the couch gets so mad.
The couch is.
Yeah, so 2 episodes left to go, which is kind of crazy because I feel like we just started. But I'm enjoying it. Of course, we know what happens, but I'm excited to see how we get there. Especially excited to see if that first confrontation that we saw in episode 1 was just like what we kind of like postulated being like maybe an alternate version of the encounter of like playing in David's mind. Maybe he's going through some fear or doubt or something, or all that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, you guys got anything else you want to get off your chest before we wrap up here?
I'm also wondering if like maybe what they're gonna do is, I feel like it might feel a lot of place doing this, but like, you know, show that whole altercation in a little more detail like we saw in episode 1, and then you get that voiceover, and then it rewinds to like.
So you're probably wondering how I got here.
Yeah,
scratch. This is why no one will ever let me do anything involving TV or movie.
You're like, yeah, that trope, I want it.
Yes, I want all of them, please. No, that would be cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see, and then I'm also excited to learn. Hopefully, so we had another delay in my buddy's interview with the showrunner. So hopefully that interview gets done before our companion series gets done, so we can talk a little bit about what is uncovered in the interview. But I really want to know how many seasons they plan on going, and like how far into the story of David they plan on going, because we've talked about this before. Like his story is massive, and this is just a tiny little sliver of David's life. It's really just the beginning. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm anxious to see and hear like if they have much planned, or if they're just kind of like going, like taking one season at a time. But Yeah, you guys have an episode that just came out last week, and
Yes.
then your next one
Next Thursday.
next Thursday.
Yeah, not this Thursday.
April 3rd.
Yeah, April 3rd on our
Yeah,
message.
there you go. Using actual dates instead of just
Yeah.
yeah.
In case
That's
you're
always
listening
the wise thing.
time, April 3rd.
What if they're
but yeah,
like 3 years from now?
April 3rd, 2025.
yeah, good. Thankfully, the months and days do exist throughout all years. So, yeah. What was your last episode about? Tell everyone what you guys have been talking about. What you got coming up?
Our last one was about the gospel, kind of breaking that down a little bit, going through the Bible as a whole, and how that points to Jesus and what that means for us, why it's important. Talking about how the telling somebody, Jesus loves you is only important if they know who Jesus is and why that matters.
Yeah.
Because without a relationship, somebody saying they love you is just creepy.
True.
So
Facts.
it's we kind of break that down a little bit and go into detail on that. And
someone should tell Mirab that.
Yes.
She just really wants to be loved. And then I don't know if you want to tease what our next one is.
So our next one is about faith and what that actually looks like practically for a believer. So just how to operate in faith, how we use faith, what faith even is, and all of that. So we really try to break things down, make things easy to understand, make things applicable to everyday life to really grow, and so that we can bear fruit, produce fruit, which is we defined in our first episode as Christ-like character. So that's just really what our goal is. And so that's what we're going to be, all of our topics are going to kind of point towards. So yeah.
Nice. Go check it out. Bearfruit.media, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say it one of these times confidently, but the link is always in the episode description. So you could just click on that and not worry about typing anything. Go check them out and follow them and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And don't forget, Severance finale is tomorrow, which will be fun. Nick is going to be joining Dad and I to talk about the finale. It's going to be a great time. Subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Catch you later.
Good episode, guys.
Yeah, it didn't end up being too terribly long either.
Yeah, just had to deal with my unhinged rant about about Nephilim and fallen angels there for about 20 minutes.
For 20 minutes.